Well, another big week for the Cowboys. We're excited about playing Appalachian State. Just some reflective thoughts on the Texas game. You know, we knew it would be a tall task. Our mindset was to go in and make Texas do some things that they didn't really necessarily want to do. Take them in the fourth quarter and hopefully come up with some plays to get a win. Unfortunately, what happened in the fourth quarter was just the opposite. Kudos to those guys. They're really talented. Our guys played hard. You know, we're going to glean some things from this game. Typically, when you get pressed by that kind of exposure of athleticism, you know, it really makes you dot all your I's and cross all your T's. And some of the things, you know, within our pursuit angles on defense got exposed because of their speed. Some of our coverage units got exposed a little bit. You know, some of the things in the passing game were exposed to a certain degree. But I thought overall, you know, there were some really good things. Evan Engram, the moment wasn't too big for him. As I saw him and engaged with him on the sideline, I think he was very much engaged, poised. There's certainly some things he could do better in the game, but for playing on that stage against that type of defense, that was excellent. Also, after watching our offensive line, I thought, you know, we were able to establish some semblance of a running game. I was a little bit concerned that we were going to get stoned, but we were able to control the clock and control the ball and not put Evan in a lot of third and long situations. Certainly having Harrison back, I think everybody saw his explosiveness. I mean, he ran away from the Texas secondary, so the future looks bright from that standpoint. Defensively, you know, I thought Coach Sobel came up with a really good game plan to try to muddy the waters. We felt like they may be off a little bit. It's been my experience when a team comes back from playing a game like that, you know, they may be a little bit disjointed. I think Coach Sarkisian talked about that after their game, but I thought Coach Sobel did a nice job, you know, not putting our secondary in really precarious situations to where we were going to be locked in one-on-one, and we're going to make them go the long, hard way. They did come up with you know, a big play on a now screen, and I think the guy runs a 10.18. I've never seen anybody that fast. But nonetheless, that one's behind us. Our players are going to learn from that. We're excited about today's practice. Moving forward on to Appalachian State, I know a lot about them. They're an old FCS or 1AA program. Jerry Moore coached out there, and I think the world of Coach Moore. I think they won I know they won 3 national championships and went in the big house and beat Michigan at Michigan, and then went through a transition where they transitioned to FBS football. They've had several head coaches. Coach Clark is an alum, and they're playing at a really high level. So while there have been many coaches that have come through there, been many transitions from FCS to FBS. What has not changed is they play with a chip on their shoulder. They're a really physical team. They play with great discipline. They have more scholarships now, and you know, they have a winning attitude, and they're not afraid to go on the road. I know they went to Texas A&M last year and won. They're one of the more noted teams around the country, and so a great opportunity, a great challenge for us to play. What has also changed, they've been able to go out and nationally recruit a little bit. Their quarterback, Aguilar's from the Bay Area. Typically, they've gotten most of their guys from the, you know, the surrounding areas outside of Boone in North Carolina and up and down the coast. But Aguilar really is an excellent quarterback. You know, they've got a balanced attack. I think they're getting about 450 yards a game, which is impressive. So that's always tough when you have somebody that can run the ball and throw the ball. Noel's a really good running back, and Haywood. And then offensively, as far as in the throwing game, they do operate with 1 tight end and 2 tight ends sometimes. That poses challenges. Horn's a great wide receiver. They're explosive on defense. So, you know, I know this. Mac Brown is a dear friend of mine, experienced football coach. He never wants to play him again. And I think that gives you an idea what kind of program they are. They took Carolina deep into double overtime and lost their game. And then, you know, has been bounced back, and an impressive opponent beat East Carolina team, who I know has got good athletes. And so a lot to look forward to. I think this also is an indication, the type of opponents that we're playing here. You may or may not know that the Mountain West, the conference, had the #1 strength of schedule nationally as a conference. And so I think we've got good teams in our conference. This is another indication. Beyond playing Texas, we're playing a team that, really enjoys a really good national reputation. So a lot to play for. We're excited about it. So questions?
Yes, Craig, just a real basic one. Saturday night, what were you most proud of after watching the tape and reflecting?
I was probably most proud of and this is going to sound maybe like an overstatement, but the competitiveness of our guys. They went out and they competed. It wasn't like they had a deer in a headlight look. And then also, even when we got down, and there was a cascade of events that happened just like on a dime that, our offense went out and, we were going to be out of the game. We marched down the field and came up with a touchdown that was called back. That's just an indication they stay in the fight. And so I think that's probably, I've seen other teams when those events happen like that, there's some, some fingers pointed on the sideline. There's some grumbling. We got none of that, and guys stayed competitive. And, that's the overarching theme that I'm thinking about this football team. We're a mature football team that plays as a team.
Did anything about Evan surprise you, or did you see that poise in practice leading up to the game?
Did not know. I mean, you cannot prepare. What has helped, he's played some here. But as you guys know, that stage, that's a different animal. But what I talked to him about, once you get out on the field, you're not playing against 100,000 people. You're playing against the Texas Longhorns, who are pretty imposing. But he was not disjointed at all. It wasn't like he was, like he had to calm him down, Ryan. He went through his progression, his reads. He can play a little bit better, but by and large, he was on point.
Does that performance allow you to wait for Peasley until he's completely healthy, or how do you see that?
Well, and Andrew's going to practice today, and I've been in touch with our sports medicine group. The measure is going to be, can he throw at a high capacity? When I say high capacity, can he make the throws that he's going to need to make for us to win? Now, Evan really gives us, a comfort level. If Andrew, for some reason, is not able to play, I think you've got a good player there, and he's going to continue to grow. But let's reflect back on Andrew Peasley's performances. I mean, gutty, and he was on point. I thought he played his best against Portland State. So we're going to be excited. I know that there'll be questions during the course of the week. I've told you guys that I'll always give you a factual answer. And right now it's going to be day to day. And I don't know when that decision is finally going to be made, but that's how it's going to be.
Greg, how reliable have Shea and Easton been through the first 3 games just at that linebacker spot?
Good question. Shea performed really well against Portland, and I thought Easton played really well against Texas. And to have those two experienced players, we run a complicated defense, and for those guys, most of the time they're always in the right spot, and they have good ability in their tackling. I thought they tackled better in this game.
Greg, what can you say about this? You talked about challenging the offensive line a little bit after Portland State. They give up 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss, and you said they got the running game going a little bit. Were you pretty impressed with what they did?
Our offensive line, yeah. Very impressed. I mean, Texas has got what I see different about Texas as opposed to past Texas's teams I've seen. They're playing defense, and that's probably a disparaging comment on some of the other teams that I've seen. But they're really well coached. They got big, strong guys, and I was concerned. I mean, their nose guard, I think he's heavier than 343, and he runs. And, when we went for 4th and short, we moved him. And there were other times that a guy like Wes King and Luke Sandy are players that are not exactly noted, played well. Frank Crum played really well. Villa played well. Caden Barnett. That was a big moment against really good big men, and they showed up.
Sam Scott, was that a matchup thing, or just where do you see him fitting in with now we have Whaley back?
Some of it's going to be running back by committee, but I can tell you that off of this last game, that Harrison separated himself. It's not like there's going to be a whole lot of other oars. Harrison will be our lead guy, but you'll see these other guys sprinkled in with what kind of skill set they bring.
With, I think App State's averaging like 40, 41 points a game or something like that. Is kind of the same thing.
Thanks for reminding me.
So is that kind of like another situation like the last 3 games where you kind of want to slow this one down and take the ball out of their hands?
You know what? We're still composing a lot of the elements of our game plan, and some of that comes down to what we really want to do on third down. Today won't be a lot. We work on third down as the week goes along. Every game plan is a little bit different. Certainly slowing them down is going to be important. Explosive plays are going to be important, but to say we're going to replicate exactly what we did against Texas, I think it's maybe a little bit premature to say that.
Craig, you talked about Sunbelt muddying things up a little bit. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that and how you guys are so successful against Ewers and company, and a guy like Jatavian Sanders, no catches on the day.
Yeah. You know what we did? There was not a lot of pressure as far as being gapped out, and so we taxed our defensive line more, which took some pressure off our secondary. We knew we were going to weaken ourselves versus the run a little bit, but we had more guys back in coverage. We were playing more two deep, more zone coverage that didn't put our secondary guys out on an island. Now, the only way you can do that is your guys up front have to be able to really play. And, so we looked at guys like Cole Goodbout, Gavin, Jordan Bertinoli, Sebastian Harsh, Braden Siders, Devon Harris, and we did some three-man rush stuff too. And all those things, I think, gave them a little bit different look. Ewers held the ball a little bit. They were off. Passing is about tempo and timing, and they were off a little bit. And I think there was a stretch in there. They were 0 for 6 on third downs. And so the plan was to make them go the long, hard way. I was a little bit surprised at Sark, who's he's a BYU throwing guy. I thought that he may abandon that running game and get frustrated and take some shots anyhow, and he never did. So that's how we did it. Now, is that template something we're going to do every week? No, but it was something that we needed to do that night.
I think App State had 3 interceptions last week and held Matt Brown's guy May without a passing touchdown. Just what do you see on that side of the ball for them?
You know what? 3 down front, they can press a passer, really good in the back end. They're where they're supposed to be. They're athletic, and they're not afraid to go out there and put themselves out there and challenge you. And so, those are challenges. I think, in the ECU game, I think they had a pick 6 for a touchdown and those things, and we had one last week also. But they're good. I mean, the record notes it, but I think we're good too. Which from your guys' standpoints, I know you're objective. It has the makings of a classic, really, really good football game early in the season.
Do you expect to have CB Taylor available for this next weekend?
It's still to be determined. I'm not going to get into specifics. I understand your question. I don't believe he'll practice today. But we'll see as the week goes along.
Greg, Nate Noel is leading the country right now in rushing. What makes that kid so special?
Well, he's got a combination. First of all, they have a really good offensive line, and I believe Coach Clark played in the offensive line. And they are noted for, some of their run schemes. They've been a great zone blocking team. Now they're doing some gap schemes and some poles. And so they have – that starts up front, but Noel's got – explosive ability. If he can get in the secondary and in the second level, he can hurt you. And so that's, that combined with a good offensive line, you got a really good running back. They have players that make you cover the whole field, and that many times weakens you against a running game.
Lottie had 3 catches last week. Obviously a year played well against Portland State. Do you see those guys getting up and yet a new quarterback? Is that encouraging that you had both those guys?
It is, and what they're doing, we did not have the luxury, Ryan, of having them during spring ball. And so their learning curve You know, they were here this summer, but you could only do so much with them. And then was fall camp, and so early in the year, I mean, we're a complex offense that has different formations, calls. The verbiage is about this long, and each week these guys have become more acclimated. They certainly have ability. They're difference makers, and I think you'll see them more integrated in our offensive attack.
What do you think is the biggest lesson that the team can take from Saturday into next week and the rest of the season?
You know, we talked about continual improvement. There were some things that we did against Portland that was improvement, not to the expectation that we wanted after the game. I thought there was improvement in this last game, and so to take another step forward, that practice does matter. You're going to play how you practice. We had a good week of practice against last week's opponent, so they'll come out and practice well. And I think there's a certain level of confidence that, okay, we went out and competed against arguably one of the, I mean, I don't know where they're picked. I think they're picked 4th in coaches. Maybe the AP doesn't have them that high. They moved up 3, yeah. You're playing on a big stage. And I thought it looked to me, I don't know how you guys saw it, except for we had some snafus, it looked like we belonged. It wasn't like I was sitting over on the sideline going, oh, my goodness. I mean, we were out there. Now, we did things that they didn't want us to do, but I think we can gain some confidence from that as coaches give us a game plan. Let's buy into the game plan and execute the game plan.
Well, this is one heck of a non-conference schedule that the school's put together. It might feel a little premature, but do you think that's going to translate into Mountain West play?
Well, competition brings out the best in you. Sometimes you get a little bit concerned if you overschedule, that you can get yourself so beat up as you get into conference play and you don't have a chance to get some guys some rest off of it. We have what we have. We knew it was going to be challenging. I think that was a marker that our players looked at during the course of the summer, and they said, look, we're going to open up with these teams. There's no break in time. Let's get ourselves ready to go. And like I said, this game here, I think it's a classic game. If you just look at noted college football fans, App State is a known name. And I think this year we're starting to get to be somewhat known, not to their degree yet, but I mean, I think nationally people recognize that we're a better football team this year.
How much of an advantage is it to have 2 tight ends contribute so much? Obviously, John Michael and Trey, and just having them kind of feed off.
It's huge. Whenever you can get in 12 personnel, and there's times we get in 13 personnel, you put those guys there and then they line up in different places. That poses a challenge for a defense. It's not like you've got the 6'6", 260-pound tight end that's just mainly maybe a guard that's been moved out there. They're guys that can run the field well. They're integrated in our passing game, and yet they are really capable blockers. And so if you choose to say, okay, we're going to play nickel, now you've got some mismatches there. And then in the running game, if you choose to say we're going to go big, and last week we split those guys out. I think early you saw, John Mike run like a speed out against a top corner. And those things they're challenges, and we're going to continue to use that. Coach Polisek's done a good job with that.
Great. Did you guys come out of this healthy?
Yes. We were a little bit concerned about Harrison, how his knee would respond, and that came out fairly well. Now, I can tell you, when they walked on the plane, I mean, they're limping, but it wasn't like I got an injury report saying, excuse me, they're not going to be able to play. We're expecting everybody to be back at today's practice, but it's not like they're going to be – I mean, it was a dogfight. And so our guys laid it on the line. They're beat up, but it's not like they're injured to the point where they can't play.
When you rewatched this game, how special was that sequence when Harsh gets in there and makes that sack, knocks them out of field goal range, and then you guys turn it around in 17-play drive?
You know what? And I believe somebody mentioned, I don't know if they gave up a sack against Bama.
No.
Yeah. I mean, Sebastian's a guy that's gone through a lot, and we schemed something up, and he came up with a sack at a big time. And like I said, that moment wasn't too big. However, sometimes when guys are playing in those type of games, the energy level is so high. how you replicate that this next week, you know, is going to be really important to play with that same energy.